This Jocks 94.5 podcast is brought to you by Millennium Satellite and Video. Log on to msbnow.com. TV excellence everywhere. That's Millennium. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning starts now.
Welcome back in, McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Hour number 2 underway right here on Jocks. 8 a.m. Tuesday, August 26th. You can watch live on YouTube. If you missed this morning's meltdown, just put the YouTube on and rewind it. Go watch from the beginning, and you'll see it there. Search Jocks 945. The app is in your app store. Tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jocks skill, and you can always listen that way. All right, let's go to the Higginbotham Hotline. Going to join us every Tuesday at this hour. Thanks to our friends at Craneworks. It's the voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham.
Lift it, load it, grade it, grind it, move it, haul it, rig it, dig it, Craneworks, Rentalworks, yeah! The big dog's got it.
The voice of the Auburn Tigers, Andy Burcham, on Mac and Cube in the morning is brought to you by Craneworks. Lifted, buy and rented, the big dog's got it. Now, Andy Burcham.
Andy, some interesting comments from Coach Freeze yesterday just on some of the different players and how they've sort of pulled through camp, and some guys sort of battling a couple of little injuries. But it feels like this team, all in all, fairly healthy heading into this Friday night matchup against Baylor.
Yeah, the two exceptions, Eric Singleton, and I think they feel that he's going to be ready for Friday night, the transfer wide receiver out of Georgia Tech. The one I think they're a bit concerned about, and when we saw how important he was to this Auburn team a year ago, is the place kicker Alex McPherson out of Fort Payne. I think he's struggling a little bit with his weight and strength, and that may be a game-time decision on Friday. We talked with Coach Freeze about it last night on Tiger Talk, and he talked about that they're just going to have to wait and see. And if he can't go, it'll be Towns Magoo and Connor Gibbs as the two guys that Auburn uses as place kicker. Hopefully, McPherson's ready to go on Friday. I think that's a concern, I think, for Auburn, to be sure.
I was going to ask you mentioned the two that are next, but what other details can you give us to either the competition, the depth chart of how that's looked if Alec were not able to go?
Well, I think that both have had good fall camps, and Magoo they both have a big leg. Magoo has a really big leg for Auburn, but struggled during the second half of last year. I think one of those two guys was going to be Auburn's kickoff guy anyway. And maybe Auburn's long place kicker, long field goal guy. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's not Towns, but I think Connor Gibbs has transferred in from Southern Miss, has made a name for himself in fall camp. Now, exactly which guy would step forward for Auburn remains to be seen at this point, but hopefully Alex is ready to go on Friday.
When you look at this matchup in particular, and the challenges, we've talked a little earlier about Alabama going on the road to Florida State, now Auburn going on the road to Baylor. What do you think is the most important thing in the first quarter of this game for Hugh Freeze and the Tigers?
I think first and second down offensively for Auburn. Auburn does not want to be in third and long early against Baylor and Dave Aranda's defense. Dave Aranda's one of the more highly respected defensive minds out there, did wonderful work at LSU now in his sixth season at Baylor, a team that won 6 in a row at the end of last season before losing to LSU in its bowl game. I think third and long concerns Hugh Freeze. It was a concern for Auburn a year ago, and with the way that LSU runs its defense, third and long could be a problem for Auburn. So I think early on is first and second down. What does Auburn do on first and second down? Whether it's the run game with Damari Olson and Jackson Arnold running the football, or getting the ball to the likes of Cam Coleman and Malcolm Simmons, hopefully Eric Singleton and Perry Thomas, Horatio Fields, I think, who's made a big move for Auburn this year in fall camp and getting ready to head down to Waco. To me, that's the big key for Auburn early on is being successful on first and second down. I know it sounds basic, but that was a problem for Auburn a year ago, those third and long. And then on the other side is getting off the field on third down. So I think those are two of the big keys for the Tigers on Friday night.
Andy Burcham, voice of the Auburn Tigers, joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline with us each week, thanks to Craneworks. You mentioned Jackson Arnold running the football, and Greg and I have said it most of the offseason. He's not just a mobile guy. He's somebody who can legitimately break you down. But we heard Hugh Freeze talk about playing multiple quarterbacks. I've heard more buzz in the last week or so about confidence in the next quarterbacks. Does all that in your mind, Andy, lead to Auburn fans should probably be ready for a little bit more Jackson Arnold on the ground than maybe has been discussed this offseason?
Well, here's the thing about Jackson Arnold, and Coach Freeze talked about this last night on Tiger Talk that airs, of course, on Jocks. You know, I don't think they know exactly what they have in Jackson as a running quarterback just because in practice, and you guys know this, I mean, you know, quarterbacks don't get hit a lot in practice, and so first touch and the play is over. I believe that Coach Freeze believes that Jackson Arnold is a very good runner, and I think Auburn will have an opportunity to get yards out of this quarterback running the football and running the RPO. So while we've not seen it a lot in fall camp, that's been by design because the quarterbacks aren't live. He's going to be live on Friday night, and I think we'll see his ability to run the football. So Jackson Arnold is obviously an important part of what Auburn is getting ready to do Friday night at Baylor against a Baylor defense that you know, Dave Aranda calls plays for. The head coach is the defensive play caller for Baylor, and it's going to be a very interesting matchup. Auburn up front is experienced, especially the middle three with Wade, Lou, and Wright. Those are the experienced guys in an Auburn uniform, but Chaplin and Murphy at the two tackle spots are experienced, albeit elsewhere, with Chaplin coming from Virginia Tech and Murphy coming in from USC. So, listen, I mean, we can talk about exactly what's going to happen, but we just don't know at this point. Not until we get out there to Waco and get ready for a pretty warm evening, I believe, that's going to be in Waco, Texas, Friday night.
What do you think would be the thing that would concern you the most from the broadcast booth's vantage point early in this game? Would it be Baylor running the football, being able to kind of neutralize the line of scrimmage? Would it be Sawyer Robinson getting off to a hot start? Would it be Jackson Arnold throwing a pick? Like, what would be your biggest concern early in this game that would have you a little on the edge?
Early turnovers, I think. I mean, turnovers were such a big part of last year for Auburn. And I know it's a different quarterback, and it's a different, you know, there's a lot of different about this Auburn team going in. But you think about, especially those games, those first 5 games that Auburn played at home last year and losses to Cal and Oklahoma and Arkansas, and how turnovers at really inopportune time, I'm not sure there's ever an opportune time for a turnover, but I think an early turnover would concern me a little bit, just from the simple fact that, you know, what does it do to the team's confidence at this point? So that to me, listen, Auburn was last in the SEC in turnover margin last year at -9. I think that's something that Auburn absolutely has to turn around this season. I don't think Auburn has to be the best team in the SEC in turnover margin, but I think Auburn, for Auburn to be successful this season, it's got to stay away from the turnovers offensively and come up with turnovers defensively as well. To me, that's early on. If that happens, that concerns me a bit.
It sounds like Andy Burcham, voice of the Auburn Tigers, with us on the Higginbotham Hotline. He'll join us every Tuesday thanks to Craneworks. Sounds like the front seven has exceeded expectations this fall. I think we all know Keldrick Falk. Kieron Crawford, a guy that, I said on this show over a year ago, his Arkansas State stuff, like wiry, flexible, big motor. It sounds like he maybe is kind of coming into his own a little bit this fall. What are your expectations just for that Auburn front seven? You mentioned pass rush a moment ago, but I think that's another part of this group that the coaching staff's really excited about.
I agree with you, and I think they're excited. I mean, excited may not be the key word, but I think that they are pleased with the depth that Auburn has up front. Because if there's a question mark for Auburn going in defensively, going into fall camp, it was nose tackle and defensive tackle. Who steps forward, and how does Auburn fill out the depth? I think Auburn feels that it has the depth it needs at those two spots, at nose tackle and defensive tackle. And Bobby Jamison Travis, Ikevius Walker, Dallas Walker, Malik Blockton, Jay Hardy, James Ash is another guy that has emerged. Malik Autry, freshman from Opelika. And then the linebacker spot. And I think this is a year for DeMarcus Riddick to step forward for Auburn at the Sam linebacker spot out of Clanton, Alabama. Highly touted recruit coming in, was one of the first guys that Hugh Freeze flipped when he became the Auburn head coach. But after that, it's guys that are coming in like a Bryce Diaz, who's a freshman out of Maryland, Robert Woodyard, Xavier Atkins, Caleb Wheatland to transfer in from Maryland, who has the most experience of any of Auburn's linebackers, albeit at Maryland. And then they really like what they've seen out of Elijah Melendez, freshman from Florida. So the depth up front, especially at nose and defensive tackle, I believe they feel they have the depth that need. It may be a little bit young at the linebacker spot, but I think Auburn feels that it has answered some questions, at least through fall camp. But again, those questions really aren't answered until you play in front of the lights, and that's Friday night down at Baylor.
Finally, Andy, as you kind of evaluate the matchup on the perimeter, we have not talked much about Auburn's secondary. It's not been a real point of concern, but nor has it really been a point of emphasis throughout this offseason. There were a couple good pieces lost off last year's team. How do you feel about the secondary as a whole when taking on some of the passing attacks they'll have this year?
And they will be tested because you're going to say, and right off the bat, Sawyer Robertson threw for over 3,000 yards with 28 touchdowns a year ago and wasn't really QB1 at Baylor until the third or the fourth ball game for the Bears. So Auburn is going to be tested, obviously, in the past. Mac, I like Auburn's secondary. A year ago, it was mostly freshmen and sophomores that were playing for Auburn. This year, it's sophomores and juniors. And these guys, like a Caleb Harris or a Jay Crawford, got huge minutes, especially they had to for Auburn. Champ Anthony is back. Sylvester Smith is a guy that played a ton for Auburn as a true freshman last year. I like the fact that Auburn brought in Rayshawn Pleasant, who Coach Freeze talked about last night on Tiger Talk as a guy that really emerged for Auburn, not only in the return game, but at corner and at the nickel. Rayon Strader, who transferred in from Miami of Ohio. Ken Lee is a junior. I mean, he's the old guy, really, in this Auburn defense. So I like this secondary. Yes. Will it be tested? Absolutely, it's going to be tested, especially when it comes to Friday night, and then, of course, when Auburn gets into SEC play when it goes to Oklahoma in 4 weeks. So I think one of the reasons that there hasn't been a ton of talk about that secondary, I think Auburn feels pretty good about that secondary. That's an experienced secondary that, albeit was mostly freshmen a year ago, but these guys are veterans now. They're sophomores and juniors playing for the Tigers.
Andy, tight end was a position that I don't really say I questioned coming into camp. I just didn't really know what Auburn had. I didn't have a lot of confidence based on what I had seen of what it was going to look like. So therefore, I was a little curious about it. I don't know how much it has solidified itself or how much it's going to be utilized. I do think Preston Howard, the transfer out of Maryland, is going to be able to help. What are you hearing about just that position and maybe its importance or different uses? Because I know Tate Johnson was somebody that was going to move over and help out there a little bit. Where's the tight end position heading into week one?
Hugh Freeze last night said that it needs to remain healthy. Auburn lost Brandon Frazier a year ago to a broken foot early in that New Mexico game. They need him to be healthy. He is Auburn's best blend at tight end of a pass catcher and a run blocker. Preston Howard is a better pass catcher than a run blocker. Tate Johnson, on the other hand, is a much better run blocker than a pass catcher. No area was hit harder by graduation than the tight end spot for Auburn from a year ago, where Auburn had incredible depth at tight end a year ago. It does not have as much depth, and they need to be healthy. I don't know if Auburn goes to the tight end as much as it did a year ago with Rivaldo Fairweather, who was that hybrid tight end. But those guys, Frazier and Howard and Johnson, they've got to stay healthy for Auburn this season. So I think that's the bottom line, because I believe Auburn feels that it has as much depth at tight end as it would like heading into the season opener.
Andy, we always appreciate the time. It's going to be fun to visit with you every Tuesday. Appreciate it. And looking forward to next week. But as folks know, you're brought to us every Tuesday thanks to our friends at Craneworks.
And let me tell you about RentalWorks. It offers a full line of rental equipment for any of your machinery needs. They also offer operators for every type of equipment as well. They can supply the equipment you need, plus the man to do the job. Go to craneworks.com for a quote in Birmingham, Nashville, Mobile, and Huntsville. All right, I'm heading to Waco. Where are you guys heading?
I'll be in Oxford, Mississippi, Georgia State at Ole Miss for the opener. GMAC?
I'll be heading to Miami, Florida for Notre Dame and Miami on Sunday night.
It's two good ones. I hope you guys have safe travels and a great call, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Andy. Looking forward to it. Andy
Take care,
Burcham,
guys. War Eagle.
War Eagle. Andy Burcham joining us there on the Higginbotham Hotline. Thanks to Craneworks. Be on the call for Auburn at Baylor Friday night. He mentioned that quick start that Hugh Freeze had referenced. It's something we already talked about in the show. We'll talk about it a little bit more next right here on Jocks.
Go inside Jocks 94.5 on Jocks TV. Morning Jocks, Mac and Cube, three-man front video simulcasts are presented by Bill Smith Buick GMC and Game Day Men's Health. Watch on the Jocks mobile app and YouTube by searching Jocks 94.5 TV.